Welcome to season 7 of the It Factor podcast. New stories, new guests. If you want to come on a podcast where you can tell your stories, where you can talk how you want to talk, 7 years in, come on the It Factor podcast. And also, the motto is still the same, to keep changing the narrative. If you're ready for great conversations, welcome home.
Hey, how y'all doing? Back again with a great episode of the It Factor podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jeremy Robinson. Today we have someone special. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Assata Shabazz.
Indeed. So it's a pleasure to have you finally. Definitely been waiting to have you for some time now, and proud of all the things you have done thus far. I'll say, how are you doing mentally, physically, and emotionally?
Well, it's the new year, so I would say I'm feeling really refreshed. I feel like you're always supposed to welcome the new year in with like new energy, new goals, a new mindset. So I feel like I'm very centered right now. Yeah.
That's good. I say, what was it like attending and now graduating from Morgan State University?
Yeah, Morgan State University was probably the best choice I could have ever made. So out of high school, I didn't really know I wanted to go to an HBCU or specifically Morgan State. I was part of the COVID class, so I would say I was a little confused. I always knew I wanted to go to college, and kind of that I wanted to work in sports. And it was really that my uncle, my late uncle actually, he passed away, who attended, he was a graduate of Howard University. And he just always had fond memories of, Howard, Morgan, and the DMV HBCUs specifically. And, he was like really like my specialized career counselor right out of high school. And he recommended me to go to Morgan because they had such an accredited and good program for strategic communications, which is what I studied there. So I took his advice on it and I went to Morgan State, and it was the best experience I've ever gotten. Amazing connections. I had wonderful experience being able to work in athletic all 4 years there, be able to work for their TV station. I was also a resident assistant, which is an interesting fact. But yeah, I really enjoyed it there. Wouldn't change it for the world. And being a graduate feels, even more an accomplishment to come out of Morgan State and to represent it.
That's amazing. Congrats again. Congrats on that.
Thanks.
You just also got an amazing accomplishment. You got a chance. You're now getting a chance to work in the Olympics. How did you get that? What are you looking forward to in that?
Yeah, so I recently got accepted into NBC's Immersion Program that works with the Olympics, the Winter Olympics right now, which is going to be happening in Milan. And really, how did I get that? Well, it was a long process, an interview process that started for me in the summer. And I first heard about it actually when I was at WNBA All-Stars last summer. Somebody had kind of connected me in a way and knew about like kind of potential opportunities that were kind of coming up for the Olympics because I was there doing a temporary job as a Fever Fellow. So I was able to get connected, and then I went through kind of a long, extensive interview process for it and was just blessed to make it out of the interview process. And that they believed in, my skill set and just like my goals and aspirations. So, I mean, I'm very grateful for that, and I can't wait come soon I'll be traveling.
Good. That's amazing. I'm proud of you for that. I know it'll be a definitely an amazing experience, but also it's cool, to say, hey, I work at the Olympics.
The Olympics. Yeah, no, most definitely. I would say growing up, that's one of the biggest sporting events like that comes on national TV. So to be a part of something like that is definitely incredible. I don't take it for granted. It's something that was definitely on my bucket list, even a Summer Olympic, to be able to work a Summer Olympic, maybe potentially after this in the future, is also on my bucket list of sporting events I would love to cover, be a part of teams that put on these high productions. So no, I'm really excited, very fortunate. And I think it's also just about, maintaining the process, because sometimes working in sports, like you might miss an event and you think like, oh, I'm doing so bad because I didn't go to like the college football playoffs or something like that. But in all actuality, as long as you're like, focused on what you have going on, you'll be able to reach your goals.
Indeed, indeed. And that's what you've been doing. Definitely following your story. I see you have been able to work for the Wizards, the Pacers, the Indiana Fever, my Commanders, Morgan State University, and I'll just say, just to name a few, because there's many more. ESPN. How was it working in all those places, and what's something that like you like? Wow, I really did this. Like, I really have been able to do this thus far.
Yeah, that's a great one. I would say, there's so many moments where you sit there and you're like, wow, like I really did that. Or you look back at photos, or, I call my mom. I think one of like kind of my underlining highlight moments was like one of the like early on was when I got my first experience, professional sports experience with the Commanders, in the NFL, was like walking onto the field. I remember, so I was an HBCU alumni, kind of like press intern. I helped out with a lot of different things, and I was doing a task. Can't remember what task I was doing at the time, but they needed somebody to escort former football legends onto the field, and I just happened to be right there. And I remember them being like, "Oh, Assata, walk these people out on the field," and I'm like, me like walking around the field. And at that time I had never been on the actual field, like yes, in the stadium, in the office, more so behind the scenes in the background. I've never actually stepped on the field. They never took us down to the field. um Even when I got my first tour, we were in the stands, looking at the field. So for them to be like in a quick moment, like take these people out there, it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a surreal moment for me, because I'm like, this is like, I believe it was like halftime towards a game or something like that. And I'm just looking up at everybody. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Like, this is what it looks like during a game. But now I'm standing on an NFL field during an actual game, which is really cool, especially because at that point I was only, I believe, a sophomore in college. So to get an experience like that early on in my career, working for an NFL team, just like, kind of doing everything and getting to experience so much in a little time there, was truly wonderful. So I feel like that was one of my kind of like, and somewhat like aha moments. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I said I wanted to work in sports, but then did I, you have a moment where like reality comes to clash and you're like, wow, I'm really working in sports. And I feel like that was one of the moments. But I would say like I've had a lot of moments that have been very special. But I feel like that's a moment that I look back to like a lot, because I'm like, wow, I was really standing on an NFL field.
Yeah.
I've been on other NFL fields now, but it was just like at that time I had never been on an NFL field, so it was an amazing experience.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I say, with that, what is your impact? Why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? Um, that's a great question. I think, my longstanding goal is to work on a sports documentary team doing feature stories, either features and hopefully, one day long form documentaries, telling stories that you just don't hear often or didn't have enough exposure or a light to be shed on. So that's really why I do it, because, I want those stories to come out. And I think, it also really ties into my family. I'm related to the first HBCU NFL drafted player, um, Robert Stonewall Jackson. And I feel like he has a story that could be shared more often. Even though he is recognized, and I grew up with him being recognized and going to different events with family, I feel like, there's always a story about an athlete that could just be spread a little further.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. You're definitely right about that. And I mean, I'm thankful even for my platform to be able to do that. I was able to do that this past weekend by going to following Destiny Howell. I followed her at Howard University, and we went out to Wisconsin, believe it or not. Me and my wife
Wow.
had a great episode with her, and she like had a historic night the other night. And it was cool because afterwards she texted me and was like, "Thank you so much, dropping wisdom on doing the show, and I'm thankful that I get to touch the other next generation. Even following you and seeing you graduate, and I think I sent you some stuff, and I was sitting there like, I'm glad. I tell my wife every time, I'm glad I'm able to help people. I think that's what it's all about. So definitely telling stories is my thing too. So I commend you.
Yeah. And I think even like, as you kind of were talking about that, like, just giving people an outlet. I feel like that sometimes within away from my family, I would say like I'm one of the first to like step in and work in sports, kind of an unconventional job. Some may say, outside of like, I feel like a lot of my family, they work as like essential workers, as in like teachers, nurses and things like that. So I think I'm also, bridging that way for like, younger generations too.
Definitely, you definitely are. That's why this next question is what it is. You're the future of sports media. You're the future of all because I see it already in you doing it. I say, what are you looking forward to upon graduating from Temple?
Upon graduating from Temple, so right now I'm in a 2-year program, so I'll graduate not this year but next. And what I'm excited about, I think I'm just excited about, that's a great question. I think everything, I'm excited for every new experience I get to experience in sports. Every story I'm able to write. I'm excited to go to new cities, new areas. I'm really looking forward to hopefully, soon being able to like step more into like international sports, and to be able to travel beyond the US and tell sports stories that are from other countries or just about athletes that come from other countries that play sports in the US. That's something I'm kind of excited to hopefully step into like possibly soon. So
I love that. I love that. And I see all that coming for you. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're already making that wave. So I say, who are you outside of all you're known for?
that's a great question. I would say, who am I? Who's Assata? Um, I would say I'm a great friend. I'm a daughter. I'm an aunt. Um, and yeah, I would, I don't know exactly, sports have kind of been my whole life. But outside of that, I really do like to travel. And I think there's an aspect of like, yes, I'm a sports writer, but I'm really a storyteller. So I do enjoy, conversations. I enjoy telling stories, meeting new people, inside of sports and outside of sports.
I love that. I love that. I say, what advice would you give to that young freshman coming into that wants to be in media, or specifically in your major? I love the name of your major, by the way, because it's different at every university and college. But of course, it's mass media at Clark Atlanta where I went. But when I heard it from two previous Morgan State graduates. And I was like, what is that? I like that. That's what's up. So definitely.
Yeah, so I got my degree at Morgan in strategic communications.
Yeah, communications. So, like, what advice would you give to someone that wants to go into strategic communications or mass media?
Advice. I feel like communications, strategic communications, mass communications, anything that stems with communications, I feel like it really is your own path and your own journey. There's so many things you can do, with having a communications degree, no matter what's in front of it. And even if it's connected to another degree, I feel like that is, the best thing about it. And it's one of those kind that are very much timeless. We're always going to need good communicators. We're always going to need people, that think in a strategic way, whether it's, PR or screenwriting. They're always going to need people, storytellers, people that, can use their imagination or predict things that might happen or in the future. So I would say, go on your own journey, go on your own path. Don't judge it to anybody else you might sit next to in class, because you can all end up different places and become successful with your degree.
You're definitely right about that. You're definitely right about that. So I say, what's your dream job? You spoke on and alluded to it a little earlier, but what's your dream job?
Yeah, so my dream job is to actually become a vice president of digital media and content, or a vice president of communications one day for a large brand, after being a successful storyteller in documentaries, long story format, or like feature stories. So after I'm able to be on one of those teams, win a couple awards, I think that's when I want to step into like a vice president role.
Okay, I see all that coming together, in due time, actually sooner than later. So keep doing what you're doing. I'm proud of you. Definitely, if you need anything, let me know. And before we do close, I would say, do you happen to have any questions for me?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess a question for you would be like, where do you see the future of, communications majors, or just even sports storytellers going?
I see it as very big, with everything going on in sports. It's forever growing, the different avenues that it takes you to. With me being an engineer and even pivoting into this, interviewing so many people from different backgrounds, different majors, it's crazy that a lot of them play sports, and sports what brings together. Already got a favorite sports team, so it's never going to be any window to where people don't want to talk about sports,
Right.
So I think that it's going to forever be a story. It's just up to us to keep telling the positive stories more than the negative, So I look forward to seeing people like yourself, myself, continuing to get together and help the world be a better place through what we do, And when it comes to this great thing we call sports, we're just thankful for it because it pulls a lot of people together, So that's what it's all about, definitely.
No, I definitely agree.
Anything else?
No, that was all the questions I had.
All right, then. Well, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to continue seeing you grow, and this episode actually be coming out soon. So I'll definitely be sending you all the follow-up information right before this week is out. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad I could make it onto one of these episodes.
No problem. I'll talk to you soon.